I worked as a junior pastor under a certain prophet, Benjamin, of a church called Sofila's House Assembly. The church is in Ebonyi State, in Abakaliki. When I heard a bang at the door, immediately I opened the door. I saw several AK-47 guns pointed at my face. In that cell, a boy brought me a cold Sprite in nylon because bottles were not allowed in the cell. When he gave me the Sprite, I couldn't wait to drink it. I was very, very thirsty. But he said something. He said, "Guy, weigh that in well before you drink them all." So I was still thinking about what the guy said when someone in that cell snatched the Sprite from me and drank it. The guy died that day in that cell. I looked at this prophet and asked him what I did wrong. And he apologized and said to me that the well-being of his ministry is worth more than one life. And that if I want to be released, I must accept to work for him. If I disagree, he will not guarantee my safety. So this is a personal story. It happened many years ago. I worked as a junior pastor under a certain prophet, Benjamin, of a church called Sofila's House Assembly. The church is in Ebonyi State, in Abakaliki, at a place called Odinukwe Street in Abakaliki. So that time I was very much younger and passionate about the things of God. All I wanted was to be called the man after God's heart, like David. I believed in prophets. I believed in prophecies. I believed in miracles. I believed in a lot of things that I would later find out to be lies and empty. This prophet, could tell you everything about yourself. The balance in your bank account, your date of birth, your mother's maiden name, how old your pregnancy is, the names of your family members, and so many other things. In fact, he raised the dead, healed the blind, caused the lame to walk, and so on. A lot of miracles. In fact, there was a woman who delivered a dead lamb in the glaring eyes of everyone in one of our crusades. This man was a major prophet. I heard his staying is, in Abakaliki. At that time, we used to move around in convoy of exotic cars, dressed in very expensive ways, and, walk like the authorities to the throne of God. And we had girls of all shapes and sizes throwing themselves at us. It was on a Tuesday that year, we had a crusade at Ebonyi Road in Enugu, in a hotel called Royal Palace. So we lodged in that same hotel and rented their hall for the crusade. Before this day, I had informed my friends, Cain, Ita, and Zil, of the crusade. They were students of UNN and they had always wanted to come and witness the ministration of the friend, me, who was now a pastor. That first night, while my friends were seated amidst the crowd that came for the miracle crusade, I led the opening prayers and watered the ground for the coming of the prophetic commander. That is how we put it then. After I ushered in the prophet, I left to my hotel room. While in my room resting, I dozed off. So I was sleeping when I heard a bang at the door, and I jumped up and quickly opened the door. I thought one of the senior pastors had, come to scold me for relaxing in my hotel room while the crusade was going on downstairs. But I was wrong. Immediately I opened the door, I saw several AK-47 guns pointed at my face by rough-looking, hefty men. I nearly lost my breath. Without asking me anything, they, descended on me with blows, boot kicks, slaps, and my shirt was torn apart and used to tightly tie my hands to my back. Then they dragged me downstairs. We go downstairs and I saw, an angry crowd everywhere. I saw my 3 friends mercilessly beaten and tied to a healer's van. That was when I realized that these men that tortured and dragged me downstairs were SARS officers. So they asked me if I knew who these my friends were, and I stared at these guys that I've known for a very long time, confused, not knowing what was really happening, or what they did, or how I was connected to it. But of course, I couldn't deny my friends. I couldn't deny them. So what exactly happened? What happened was that while the prophet was ministering to the congregation as usual, he was healing the sick, and he got to the turn of a man who claimed he was born blind. The man was going to be the major miracle of the night. Unknown to the prophet, unknown to this blind man, rather, my friends were living in the same neighborhood with him. So my friends knew that he was not blind, and when they saw him faking blindness, they thought that the man was deceiving the prophet. So they stood up and went to let the prophet know that the man was not a blind man. Unknown to my friends, this man was hired by the prophet to fake blindness. So in the process of trying to blow the cover of this blind man, the congregation became confused, and to douse the brewing confusion and rising suspicion, the prophet raised false alarm and alleged that my friends were trying to blackmail and kidnap him. So my friends were quickly caught by the congregation, and of course, we know this puppet. Nobody even asked questions. So these my friends were caught, beaten to pulp before SARS arrived. When they were being beaten, they kept on shouting that I was the one who invited them to the program, and that was how I was named the pastor who conspired with hoodlums to kidnap the prophet. These kidnappers did not come with a car. Just pay attention. They did not come with a car. They did not come with a bicycle, no gun, no machete, no dagger, not even a razor blade. So were they going to kidnap and carry the prophet on their head? These were questions that nobody asked. So this incident confirmed my suspicions that, suspicions I've had for a while. I'd always known that there was a reason why some guys, who worked with us and are not even pastors, were treated with, more attention and paid better by the prophet, whereas people like me who pray, preach, and do most of the other things to keep the congregation entertained before the arrival of the prophet in every program. Yet, we're hardly appreciated. We are even hardly in, meetings, important meetings with the prophet. So these guys were the ones who gathered information to enable Papa to prophesy. And I also saddled with the responsibility of hiring miracle actors. That is why they were paid better and given preferential treatment. So to save himself, the prophet sacrificed me and my friends. Before the SARS people drove away with us, I heard everyone who once revered me, cursed me and called me all sorts of unpredictable names, including my girlfriend then, Neka. When we go to the police station, we were extremely tortured and subjected to all sorts of dehumanizing treatment by the officers who were doing the bidding of the prophet that gave them, fat envelopes. We were locked up in different cells. As the leader of the kidnap gang, as I was being, referred to, I was locked up in cell 1 with other purportedly hardened criminals. The cell was very small, and there was an open toilet at the center, of the room. We were over 30 in that cell, some were with gun wounds and other bleeding injuries. So there was no space to sit down or squat. We were all standing awfully close to each other, that our dirty bodies were gumming together. The heat was excruciating, and the smell of the open latrine and wounds was suffocating. There was no space to breathe, no water to drink. No one who would have come to my rescue knew where I was. There was grave silence in the cell, except for the unintelligible talks from those who had lost their sanity due to frustration and suffocation. So each night, the SARS people come to that cell and pick one person, and we would never see that person again. I later, learned from other inmates that the police people kill and sell body parts to doctors and hospitals. It was such a terrible experience. So on the 15th, on the 15th day in that cell, a boy brought me a cold Sprite in nylon because bottles were not allowed in the cell. When he gave me the Sprite, I couldn't wait to drink it. I was very, very thirsty. But he said something. Immediately he handed it over to me. He said something. He said, "Guy, weigh that thing well before you drink more." That was what he said. So I was still thinking about what the guy said when someone in that cell snatched the Sprite from me and drank it. The guy died that day in that cell. The next morning, my IPO came to our cell and shouted my name. Immediately I answered. He said, "So you are still alive?" He didn't know when he said that. After 3 weeks in that cell, they took me to OC SARS office that afternoon, and I was shocked to see the prophet there. He had brought bags of foreign rice, bottles of expensive wines, and loads of other goodies. And undoubtedly money too, of course. So I was shocked when the SARS commander excused himself from his office to give me and the prophet some privacy to talk. I looked at this prophet and asked him what I did wrong. And he apologized and said to me that the well-being of his ministry is worth more than one life. He told me that my friends had been released, and that if I want to be released, I must accept to work for him as part of his eyes. That was how he put it. And accept that I must never tell anyone what happened, and that I must come to his church and apologize for what happened. If I disagree, I will remain in that cell, and he will not guarantee my safety. And if I am released and I fail to play along, he will not also guarantee my safety too. So I accepted. Who wouldn't accept after 3 weeks of torture? I accepted. First, I wanted to know what being part of his eyes means, and I know that exchange of one fat envelope can cost me my life. So I was freed, and I was